Sean Mooney is out with Macho Man and Fluke Perfect as well later on the show. I mean, not much to
Plastic
see other.
chickens,
Yeah,
plastic chickens and turkeys. That's
plastic
what I
chickens and
remember.
turkeys, and a weasel, or the turkey represented our
A
man
very small one. Yeah.
Bobby Heenan. But in between that was the debut of Yokozuna on a pay-per-view at the WWF, a very quick squash match against Virgil, who I can't believe is still in the company at this point, but it seems
The
to be his
Virgil
job.
push has ended. I
Yes,
think we've
definitely.
followed Virgil's journey. And just a year ago, he was in one of the four times four Survivor Series matches. He was the former $1 million champion,
Yeah,
but at this point, he's just fodder, isn't he?
he
To get
absolutely
people
is.
over. And Yokozuna, he does his job, makes him look like an absolute beast here.
Yeah,
And this was my first viewing of Yokozuna because I hadn't seen the
yeah,
superstars. And I think he was just, you're in awe of seeing a guy so big playing the sumo. For
yeah,
years, we thought he was Japanese and a sumo wax,
yeah.
and he absolutely destroyed Virgil here.
Yeah, he did look tremendous. I mean, for a man of his size, he moved around, better than Virgil. Let's see. Um, Next on the card, we
Well,
actually
can I
have a
just say one
yeah,
thing here,
yeah,
Max? Because just that Silver Vision
hmm
version of this, if you can find this online, they actually have a segment where Virgil is resting in the back on a one of the beds. What would you call them? The thing they woo you out in.
uh,
The
stretcher.
stretcher, the
Yeah,
stretcher. My brain's not working. And he's there, and Lord Alfred Hayes again comes and puts a mic to him, and Virgil's trying to act and says, this Yakazuma ultimately is a menace to society, and he says, people are going to have their hands full, especially the WWF champion. So this kind of segment, if you can find
yeah,
it, but yeah, Virgil did not do his research because he does refer to him as Yakazuma rather
yeah.
than Yokozuna. But yeah, we're not going to see much of Virgil in the coming months,
No,
unless he's just getting destroyed by somebody.
yep. Next up is our only sort of traditional Survivor Series match. With a little bit of odd rules involved. Fash immediately has his thumbs down. It is the Beverly Brothers and Money Inc. against the Natural Disasters and the Nasty Boys. All four tag teams are, heelish tag teams for the most part throughout most of their career at the WWF, but it's odd that they end up in this manner. It's odd rules, as I say, because if one tag team member gets pinned, the whole tag team has to
Well, that's what they
leave
always
the
do with the
match.
tag team stuff, right? Well,
Well,
that's what they
yes,
always do.
yes.
But yeah, I guess because this is just simple
Just a 4v4
four
rather than
sport,
the.
you would think that they'd stretch a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we have once again covered how this match came to be in our archives.
Yep.
The Bushwhackers were initially supposed to be on the babyface team, but they step aside for the Nasty Boys, who now have a feud developing with their ex-manager
Yep.
Jimmy Hart and the tag team champions Money Inc. So really, you've got two teams that Jimmy Hart screwed over
Yeah.
in the Natural Disasters and the Nasty Boys versus Money Inc. And the Beverly Brothers are just there for the sake of it. I guess they did challenge for the titles at SummerSlam '92,
Yeah.
but I don't know what your thoughts were here. I just thought this was a waste of time, really.
Yeah. I mean,
These guys were just not pops, yeah, but just teams are outside of Money Inc. I mean, who really had heat here now?
No. Well, I think by flip flopping a couple of teams around, it's difficult for fans to really get into this match. And I think all four tag teams, okay, they had their place in the WWF, but against each other, they just didn't mishmash very well. I don't think. Um, you know, Interestingly, one of these four has a current WWE superstar as their son. I don't know if you could answer that bit of trivia.
Yeah, Erwin R. Shyster. So Bray Wyatt, you're
Yep.
referring to Mike Rotundo or Rotunda as the father of Bray Wyatt, maybe also the father of Uncle
Yep.
Howdy, or
Maybe, perhaps.
yeah, maybe if it's not the same person playing that. So yeah, obviously,
And actually, sorry, I've just remembered there's actually a second one as well here in this match. Bo Beverly's son is on NXT. Von Wagner, his son's name is Calvin. He's so pretty average,
Well, I
like his
think when
dad.
you look at this, we talk about if I'm going to be Jose Mourinho here for a second, wrestling heritage.
Yeah.
If you look at this, these are guys, Earthquake was a great heavyweight, and he's kind of him and Typhoon are cooling down. They were heels, and we're not going to see much of them moving forward. Nasty Boys babyface didn't really work, but everybody hits Jimmy Hart, so that's
Yep.
fine. Beverly Brothers didn't really give them a great
Mm.
gimmick when they walked in. What was interesting for me here was, you do see the loss of the LOD.
Mhm.
That's the babyface team that you want involved here, and there's not a lot of others that are around. But they would have got the loudest pop rate if they
Yep.
were still here. The other thing is the Genius is just there, Wax. I think we
Yeah.
forget the Genius is part of this match. He's there with the Beverly Brothers, but there's just no heat on him.
Mm.
He's not involved in the storyline because it is all about Jimmy Hart, and we aren't really going to see much of him either.
Yeah.
And I think it was there. I mean, in terms of the match, what do you have? You have Earthquake eliminating Bo Beverly, so they're gone. Then very quickly, IRS pins Typhoon, so the natural disasters are gone. And before Money can even celebrate, really, Sags rolls up IRS,
Yep.
and that's the end of your match. You'd think at this point, okay, they're building to pay-per-view bout or a big match somewhere between the Nasty Boys
Yep.
and Money Inc. for the tag team championships. But yeah, it's one of the ones where you could fast forward.
Yeah.
Really
Thankfully, the tag team division is going to get shook up a little bit with the introduction of a new babyface team very soon after this event, which I won't mention just now. We'll keep it on the down low for now.
And he's not talking about Hogan and Beefcake.
No, I'm not at all. Let's move on, Fash. There's a video showing of Mr. Perfect, Macho Man, and Tatanka manning the phones. This is like in the era when they used to have these live phone-ins where people could actually speak to the wrestler just after their match or before. Quite an interesting concept. I don't think it's necessary anymore with obviously kayfabe is gone and you've got the online stuff happening, so it's a bygone era.
It evolved from these kind of phone conversations to AOL.
Yeah,
you'd hear about it, right? And then obviously now everything is about social media. But certainly, as you mentioned way back in episode 1, Wax, when we were just discussing our broad memories, you and I both got in trouble.
We did, yeah.
When we were growing up, phoning wrestling hotlines, be it Power Slam or other wrestling related sites. So, but look, this is a great kind of spin. I think WCW is probably known more for it.
Yeah.
Roland and his hotline, but yeah, I guess it's a novel concept, certainly for 1992.
Yeah, another very novel concept is the match between Kamala and Undertaker, which is going to be a coffin match, which is later called a casket match. I don't know why the terminology had to change, but either or works. What do you think, A, about the gimmick, and B, about the storyline up to this point?
Well, once again, I think leading into this event, you were thinking, okay, nightstick match. So the coffin match sounds very interesting. We hadn't seen one. What is it going to be like? You saw the Undertaker building this coffin for Kamala. Yep. I mean, the feud leading up to this was pretty so-so. We've covered the SummerSlam match. Essentially, the feud is Kamala is shit scared of the Undertaker and just runs away every time he sees him or a casket or a coffin. And that's basically the storyline. And Harvey Whippleman and Kimchi try to calm him down. It's an intriguing match on paper. But in terms of, once again, Undertaker had to face so many people over these years where there wasn't a lot of technical wrestling going on.
I mean, Kamala's work in the ring is abysmal. I mean,
but not in the old school time.
Not
stuff from the 80s and things.
So we're talking like 10 years, 12 years after that point. Horrible chops, kicks, slams. Undertaker sold it pretty well, to be fair to him. He took 3 splashes during the match and got up, and then the urn was thrown in to scare Kamala, and Taker knocks him out with it. And then pins him.
Move from the Undertaker, hits him with the urn. I think Bobby Heenan makes a quip about what can he get him in the coffin after he pins him, and he very easily gets him in the coffin after that comment. And then I think is the interesting part of this match is the Undertaker then sealing the coffin wax
with the nails. Yeah, absolutely, nails upon nails. It was quite a sight. I thought I didn't really understand the point of pinning somebody and then having to roll them in the casket. I thought the idea was to win the match by getting them in the casket and closing the lid. I'm sure they did that later on.
They did that later on. It was a little bit scary, but I could understand here because people might not
understand the concept.
I thought I actually quite like the idea of the pin because that shows the guy's finished, and then you've got to do the next part of it. But I think because this was the original concept, I say the only coffin match as such, they moved on to the casket. Obviously, prior to this, it was the body bags with the Undertaker, which we've mentioned. So they're kind of changing it as they go along. But this was the feud, I say, started before SummerSlam. This is the end point of it. You would believe, and there'll be a next phase of the storyline with Harvey Whippleman certainly. But Kamala as the big threat to the Undertaker
Yeah.
is no more. I think in the Silver Vision version, as the extended cut, they do have a segment in the back where Kim Chi and Harvey Uppelman are trying to open the coffin, and they eventually do. And you've got
Yep.
Kamala in there, kind of shaking, doing some great acting. So check that out online if you can.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can find it, I don't know. Maybe we'll show it on screen, Wax, when we do our post production, if we can find that. But
Yep.
that was it. Another match more about the grandness of WWF
Yep.
spectacle, the story rather than the in-ring action.
I had a quick question for you, Fash. We've seen 2 gimmick matches on this card. What's your favorite gimmick style match?
Oh, that's a tough one, Wax.
I was thinking about this. Actually, my favorite is probably a ladder match, a traditional ladder match, rather than the TLC. I did really enjoy those. Although I missed the casket matches as well these days, actually.
That's a good question. And I mean, it depends how far you take the gimmick argument, right? So I guess we're not talking about things like Royal Rumble and things. We're talking about the more, here's a stipulation, here's something. It's difficult to say. I might have to have a think. I'll say when originally the Hell in the Cell.
Yeah.
I really like that. They've diluted that so much.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll pay tribute to Vince Russo. Anything on a pole and I'm in.
Okay. Okay, well, I won't take that any further. We're moving on to our main event, which is Bret Hart, who is the World Heavyweight Champion, versus Shawn Michaels, who's the Intercontinental Champion. Similar to the rest of the matches, there's a lot of promos prior to the match kicking off. I won't really run through them too much. I mean, this is the start of a storied rivalry, and maybe not even the start, because they had some run-ins as tag teams, but really, if you think about them from an individual perspective, this is really the start of what, we were talking about the other day, about a very short period, actually, up till 1995, 97, sorry, when we had the screw job. A lot happens between now and then.
5 years, and people talk about that Survivor Series main event.
Yeah.
Forget about this one. But yeah, as you say, it's just really odd. These two were just intertwined. In terms of their runs. One is the Intercontinental Champion here. You can tell in this match he wants to be more the Intercontinental Champion. The other man is trying to prove himself. But I don't know, before we get into the actual thoughts of the match, this is so weird, right, Wax? This was like watching this thing too. You start off the year with all these big, larger than life characters. A lot of them have left, and now you are left with two guys that are basically intercontinental mid-card level who are main eventing a big show, closing out the year. One is world champion, one is intercontinental champion. This is just surreal even when you watch it now. And you just look back at SummerSlam. Rewind it more, look at WrestleMania, go Royal Rumble. You could never, ever have thought this would happen. Obviously, there's stories behind why. We've discussed that in our steroids episode, etc. But even watching it now, it's surreal that these two are main eventing at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think the crowd would have found it odd to see these two as the main event.
And closing the show.
Closing the show, because they could easily have went with that tag team match from earlier, with Flair and Macho Man, sort of proven main event stars. But really, they're going down this new route, and I think it was the right decision. They had to change things up, and they picked two guys to really showcase what that future looked like. And I thought they had what I thought was a tremendous match.
Yeah, and this is Bret's second closing out of the event. I mean, I'm talking about the kind of SummerSlam, but the match with Bulldog was not really a main event, but it was to us people in Britain, and it was the right thing to close the show. And he wins an absolute banger against the British Bulldog.
Yeah,
and now he's closing out another show, so that would have given Vince confidence that this guy can take that position. As you see, it's the right move to make, because you are trying to underline, look, this is big change now. This is the guy, the future of WWF is these guys. So it was really, but it just still feels weird at the time when you see so much changed in 1982, and that's why we're so excited to talk about this year. But on to the match, Wax, what did you think?
Well, first of all, it's very different to every other match on the card. There was a lot of wrestling maneuvers in this match, a lot of reversals. There was good time spent, telling a story, selling. The match had different parts to it, so they sped up and then they slowed down, they speed up, slow down again.
A lot of wrestles in the middle, but then they up the pace.
And just on the wrestle, I mean, Brett says something interesting in his book. He goes, Shawn confessed to me that he wasn't in working shape to go a long match, so I paced the match a lot slower than I would have liked as a favour to him.
Humble as ever.
But he says Vince said the match was right on the money. So, and it might be true, because there was a couple of instances where Shawn did have Brett in a rest hold during the match, quite long rest holds. But I think that builds part of the story as well.
And Sean would have been nervous, right? This is
yeah,
him in a position where he's never been in.
Yeah.
But I
I
think
mean, he's acting the cocky heel on camera, but
Yeah,
really, if you
it
think
must
about
be
it, he must
this
have been
is-
absolutely
yeah.
bricking it. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other guy is more experienced, but he did his part in it. But yeah, it's a good technical match. There isn't that backstory really leading into this, Wax.
no,
So they're kind of thrown together,
Yeah.
because Sean takes the Intercontinental Championship from Bulldog. So really, he would have been challenging for the WWF title, but there isn't a lot of heat behind them. They were supposed to originally take each other on at SummerSlam '92 before they had the venue changed to the UK. So I guess there was an end game of Sean being Intercontinental Champion, but it does feel thrown together. It's still interesting that the title changes over this era, be it for the WWF title, were off, big events or even TV shows,
Yeah.
and they were shown afterwards. But I think they're thrust upon a position which was a difficult one.
Yeah.
And it was a really good match when you consider everything.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down
guys.
I wrote down a bunch of things of why I like wrestling back in the day to versus today. I'm not going to go through them all, but it's typical stuff, about selling properly,
Yeah.
showing that expression on your face that something really hurt, even something like a simple backdrop, really showing the pain
It's
and
way
holding your
better
back.
then.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just running into the next move immediately. A couple of highlights for me. Sean takes the best slingshot in the business.
Yep.
He did that really well. It was a ref bump, but that didn't really impact the match or the finish. They had a good number of near falls towards the end of the match. And then there was a moment where Brett got hung up on the ropes. He went for sort of a crossbody and it almost went through the ropes, but ended up hanging up on them. I thought that was tremendous. I'd never really seen that before this early.
Brett was innovative
Yeah.
within his matches. I know we had the 5 moves of doom thing, but within that,
Yeah.
it always told a great story.
Yeah. And another pretty unique finish as well with him catching Shawn Michaels, who's going for some sort of attempted drop kick.
That's a unique finish. You see
Yeah.
what Shawn Michaels trying to do here. I thought the ending, I forgot how it ended,
Yeah.
was he's on the second rope and he kind of just jumps at him
Yeah.
to get caught into the sharpshooter. So I was going to ask you, Wax, what move was that? I mean, what
I
was he
don't know.
trying to do there?
I don't know. Maybe he just forgotten what he was trying to do mid-air. But as you say, Brett catches his legs and sort of turns it into a sharpshooter. So while it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Sean to be doing that, it did still look quite good. Similar to the SummerSlam finish, which we'd seen and commented on, similar to the WrestleMania finish against Roddy Piper. It's a year of pretty, good-looking finishes from a Brett perspective.
But you know what's interesting to me here? You talk about, Brett putting him in the sharpshooter. Earl Hebner is the referee here.
Yeah, I know.
He puts him in the sharpshooter again 5 years later, and it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Earl Hebner is very quick to ring the bell. We'll get to that, but it was just kind of the foreshadowing. If you're writing a script that we're going to do this years later, of course, that's not how it happened. But it's just very interesting to see, as I say, these two out here, the same referee. Who becomes a legendary referee, and then there's another sharpshooter 5 years later.
Yeah. Somebody else who really liked the match was Dave Meltzer. He gave us 4.5 stars in his review.
Who cares what Dave Meltzer liked or didn't like?
Come on, we can't have every podcast trashing Dave Meltzer, no matter who it is.
I mean, if you thought it was 4.5, I mean,
he's
you're saying it's a good match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dave Meltzer, and we don't have anybody, calling us saying, praise our match or whatever. But no, he's right.
No.
I mean, it's a very good match. People forget this match. They talk about all their other matches because it was so early, but such a significant match for both. You made the comment about Vince saying, it was on the money, but I would hazard, I guess, saying he said that. Then he went into his locker room and cried for 2 hours, wishing Hogan was there.
Wishing wrestling went back in time.
Or the Warrior wasn't fired or what have you, or you can get along with him. Because this certainly wasn't how Vince McMahon was pitching things back in the day. But that closes out the show well. It doesn't close out the show because Brett wins. And then suddenly snow starts falling. It's not Glacier yet, Wax.
No.
But Santa Claus comes out, even though this is a Thanksgiving event. And we're a month out from Christmas, but I guess there wasn't another Christmas pay-per-view. So what do you think of Santa coming out?
He stole the show, obviously. No, I think it was just to send the fans home extra happy after a pretty good main event, a good finish. The right man won for the crowd. And one thing I will say for the crowd, actually, is every finish, they were pretty strong in terms of their favour for most of the wins. I think most of the faces
There's a lot
did
of
well.
DQs here, Wax. What are you talking about?
Well, I think there was
Back,
heat.
how many DQ finishes did they have? Or
There
am
was
I
just
just not
the
very good at
one.
this?
There was just the one DQ in the middle of the show.
I don't know. I thought there was more, but I'm looking
No,
back at my notes
I
now.
think the fans were pretty happy
I
with
think
most of the
you're right.
finishes.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to give this an overall rating, Fash, I mean, for me, middle of the road. And I think I only get to middle of the road because Brett and Sean had a tremendous match. And I enjoyed the tag team match between Ric Flair's team and Macho Man.
It's a 2-match card, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, you watch it for these 2 matches. I want to make one more comment on Santa. I know you kind of do not, you didn't attack him. I'd set you up and you didn't attack him, but I think what really shows how WWF's going to evolve is they're going to have Santa again next year at the end of Survivor Series, and then down the line, I'm sure Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to stunner Santa to really tell you how wrestling should be in the late 90s.
Yeah.
We didn't need Santa here, but yeah, I think for me, it's more of a thumbs down, Wax, if I'm honest with you. I think it was a very difficult period. I think they managed the period really well. This pay-per-view had a lot of issues. But I think if you're looking at just the quality of matches, most of them were short matches, except for the tag team main event. And of course, Sean and Brett went a good time, I think, of 26, 27 minutes. But I think it was a 2-match card. And in reality, if you remove the storyline of Mr. Perfect, it's probably a 1-match card. Perfect and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So I will actually, when I compare it to the other events we've seen in 1992, for me it's a thumbs down. But I recall it really fondly because I still remember the night I watched it and enjoyed it. But even then, thought this is very different from the events I've seen up to this point because of that main event. But look, this is the culmination of all the things that are happening in the WWF. There's going to be more changes as we go into 1993, but they got through it. And I think recently, as going back to that Bruce Pritchard podcast, which was quite recent as well, I think this was just about let's get past this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And then,
Absolutely. Yeah. And this pretty much us at the end of one of our most, I think one of our favorite years in wrestling, 1992. I'd still, having rewatched everything recently, I'd still put this up as one of my favorite years of wrestling. I think maybe just because,
wasn't it? Because we got into it, and I still, as you say, so much happened, so many stars, so many changes for me. Yeah, I've loved looking at this. So, Wax, we've covered Survivor Series 1982. We finally got through it. I say, follow the journey through the archives. We have meticulously covered this period. I will challenge any other podcast out there and say that no one has done it in the detail that we have. But now we're closing out the year. We're going towards the Royal Rumble. There is a few big developments that are going to precede the Royal Rumble, and we'll cover that in our next show. But we're really leading up to a big milestone, Wax. So I'll throw it over to you. What are we talking about next?
Absolutely. So hopefully, we'll cover the run up to Royal Rumble. But one of the big things that happens in January of 1993 is the very first edition of Monday Night Raw. And we're hoping to do a watch along episode for that particular one. It's only 45 minutes long on the network, that show. I'd encourage everybody to try and watch it beforehand and listen to us just chat through what was happening, why it was happening, and why it was such a big change for the WWF.